Let us stand for the flag salute. Yeah, I know. She's doing good.
I have surgery on Friday, so don't get used. I'm going to have it on Friday.
Let her rip.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Councilmember Redmond. Here. Councilmember Stackleth. Here. Councilmember Stearns. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Kleur. Here. Mayor Collings.
Here. There are no special presentations, so we will go to agenda item number 4 and open up the floor for public comment. Kathy, anybody signed up?
There's nobody online.
Well, it would be one of you two, so
Or both.
not the days where there were several hundred of folks in the audience, and we had, which wasn't that long ago. It's a good point. And nobody online? No. Okay. Council and staff comments? Why don't we just start with staff? Todd? Sure. First of all, welcome back, Todd.
Thank you. Just an update, we are underway with the stormwater drainage infrastructure RFP and moving along. We have 2 responses for the public safety potential consolidation RFP, and we're waiting for 2 people to look at it, and I've got a pretty good idea of who we're going to pick, so that's going to be kicking off. The housing element will be kicking off tomorrow, and in terms of annexation, I've had a hard time getting an audience with the county, but that's solved, and next week I am meeting with the chief administrative officer to officially get things going. And yeah, a lot going on.
Muriel, anything now, or you want to save yourself for later in the show? Can we get this front speaker turned up a little bit, please? Any council comments?
Well, a question for city manager. In terms of the annexation, thinking about
Tim?
doing...
Tim? Thanks.
Looking at the possibility of annexation of Crystal Geyser and the Orchard property together, or just the...
I'm going to be bringing up both.
Okay.
Yep.
Through the chair, question for city manager. Regarding the housing element, you mean they're actually going to start doing the work, the group?
With, I didn't hear the first part.
The housing element, you said it's kicking off starting?
Yeah, it's the first kickoff meeting with Plan West, the consultant that's taking it on tomorrow.
Other questions? I noticed...
Can I add something to that? Well, that's all well and good that we're going to be kicking off that study. ACD actually hasn't provided the money for it. We've been awarded it, technically, but we don't have the money. And my Rico Tinsman, planner down in Dunsmuir, has been contacting them for 2 months and hasn't gotten a response. So we're wondering how we're actually going to be able to complete this, given the allotted time frame, if we don't have the money to get out to our consultants. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Tessa? John? No?
Other questions?
Yeah.
In terms of the 201 Eugene Way receivership, any report on status or update on that or the other property?
We are following all procedures, and I would say that the pressure campaign has at least gotten the notice. of both owners of both properties, and that they've come in looking for ways that they could potentially either sell or revitalize their properties on their own, which is usually a sign that they're getting a little anxious.
Okay. And then, what is the current completion date for the landing cleanup? Do we have any idea of that?
It was going on a couple weeks ago, and they had what they pulled from the site under tarps, and apparently the EPA hadn't told the county, and now that's all taken care of. I don't know if they're fully cleaned up, but I'm assuming they are.
I can tell you that the cleanup is not done yet. They found high levels of contamination in some of the testing that they did, which means they're going to have to expand and do some additional testing in the same areas. And until that is done, we're unsure as to how much more cleanup will have to be done. For the most part, most of the site is clean. There's just these last things happening, and we may be able to actually get additional funding to make sure that we're able to get rid of all of the hazardous waste that is stored there at this point, because it's quite expensive to have it transported to, there's a site in Southern California that will take it. But as you know, with fuel prices and some of the other things, the cost for transportation of that material is going to be quite high. But the Brownfield program has received something like, I can't remember if it's 1.5 or 5.1. Sorry, it got $1 billion in additional funding for brownfield sites and assessments and those sorts of things across the country. So I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to receive the funding to continue with the cleanup effort there and get it finished up.
Thank you.
Any committee updates?
One more question.
That's it.
I can bring it up under
No, I'm teasing.
consent agenda items. Well, I can bring it up with consent agenda, but let me do it now. What are K9 T-shirts? And why do we have a $428.78 expense for K9 T-shirts?
What's happening is our K9 Arty, that program is actually developing into eventually into a 501c3 type entity where donations will be made for the K9 program. They're buying T-shirts to sell at, I believe, the 4th of July, as well as the little stuffed animals and that kind of stuff. It's really just a fundraiser for the program.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Todd, anything on any committee updates?
We haven't had any committees meet. We have DEAC that is been rescheduled to next Wednesday.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. City manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items, all resolutions and ordinances on this agenda. Well, first of all, let me just ask, is there anything on this agenda, councilors, that you would like to consider separately?
No, but I would like page 39 for the audit report. Has a typo in the name of Stearns.
Oh,
So if we can correct that.
okay.
No, but I do have a question on one of them, but I don't need it separately.
Okay. Let me just enter it, then we'll hit into that. The city manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda or added hereto shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading thereof is hereby waived. A is the approval of minutes on June 13th, 2022, regular city council meeting. B, approval of disbursements. Accounts payable June 8th, 2022, total gross payroll and taxes for the period ending June 12th, 2022. C is the monthly investment report. D is resolution CCR-22-16, establishing a hiring bonus structure for police officers and dispatchers. E is approval of resolution CCR-22-17, claiming the city's appointment or apportionment of local transportation funds, the amended version. And F is resolution CCR-22-18, changing the time, date, and location of the Downtown Enhancement Advisory Committee meetings. You had a question, Tessa?
Yeah, Officer Gibson, on item 7D, I was inquiring at a previous meeting whether those funds could be used for existing police officers and not just as a hiring bonus. Did you investigate whether that COVID money could be used retrospectively?
I did. We discussed that, brought it up with Muriel. We have done a bonus with the existing members. I believe it was $1,000 or $2,000 bonus for serving during COVID. But right now the priority is retention and recruitment. And then if we have other funds that can be used in other areas, we can look at that. But we did look into the fact that we've already spent, was it $1,000 or $2,000? I can't remember now, Muriel. $1,000 bonus was given to all the law enforcement that served during COVID. So they already got a bonus for that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Move to approve consent agenda items A through F by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda 8 is the 2020-2021 audited financial statements for the City of Mount Shasta and Mount Shasta Public Financing Authority. Muriel, you want to give us the headlines here?
Yes, the audit committee met last week with our auditor, Charlie Pylan, and the audit has been complete as of this date. There's an additional audit required for the Mount Shasta Public Financing Authority, which is also presented here. The audit committee met, and they may have some points that they would like to make about the audit if they'd like. Otherwise, the audited financial statements have been distributed. It was both audits were clean audits, no exceptions. If you have any questions, if anybody has any questions, please let me know, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Through the chair. So I'm just going to continue what Muriel's talking about, my comments regarding the audit itself, which will be general, not technical. I think my colleague will maybe touch on some of those items. Apparently, well, the audit was clean, and so what are we doing every year with these audits? To remind people here and those in the audience, the viewing audience, the audit is on the final numbers for 2021. It did take a little extra time. Typically, I think we vote on this in February or March. There had been some changes. I guess, well, Muriel can explain what might have caused the delays, but there were some technicalities that needed to be worked out, basically. The fundamental numbers did not change. What we talked about a year ago, approximately, would have been in July or August, looking at 2021 have not changed. It was a good year, all things considered, and the audit came out stellar for Muriel and for the city. To not accept the audit, I just always wonder, what does that mean? You want to kick it back to be redone, or you have some big questions and don't think it was thorough enough? I'm not sure, but I think I can say that it was very thorough based on what was said by the auditor throughout that meeting. It was about an hour and a half long. So I wholeheartedly support accepting this audit. Go ahead, Tessa.
Yeah, just building off of Muriel and Member Stackleth. We met with Charlie Pillen, who's a very knowledgeable CPA auditor, and he didn't have any findings, no significant deficiencies, a very clean audit, as good as you can get. So it's an A+ in the audit world. And the only other item I wanted to touch on is that in looking at the figures of the enterprise zones, it is indicative that we are in need of the Prop 218 process, which we are doing. So it's good timing on that, and it's good to revisit those issues to make sure that those funds pay for itself and pay for future projects. But yes, very well done to Muriel and the Finance Department.
Motion? Comment?
No questions, public comment?
Is anybody in the audience like to comment on this item? Online? Tim?
I move adoption of resolution CCR 22-19, resolution of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta accepting the independent audit reports for fiscal year 2020 and 2021 by title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda item number 9 is approval of the fiscal year 2022-23 budget, authorized positions and appropriations limits. Muriel, would you introduce this and take us through it, please? Guys, this is where the budget overview is. It's trying.
It's there.
The one back here is working. This
Yeah, that one is, yeah, okay. Wow.
Anyway, I'll go ahead and begin. Before you tonight is the budget, authorized positions, and appropriations limits for fiscal year 2022 and 2023, just in time, as we like to have these done certainly before June 30th of each fiscal year. So time is of the essence to work our way through these budgets. Todd did present to you a report discussing the budget and kind of gave a wide view of where we are with projects and those sorts of things. So if you have any questions, you can ask either I or him regarding that. At this point, it appears for the general fund that we will wind up actually in a negative $112,000 a loss for the year, keeping in mind that we have budgeted $75,000 for the equipment transfer, which is basically moving money out of the general fund into the equipment replacement fund to continue to do that. And the other is budgeting for $75,000 for the fire and police study. Taking those into consideration, that's why we're basically, that took us into that loss range. However, our contingency reserve still, even with that negative amount coming through, is still at a little above 32% projected for the end of fiscal year 22-23. Of course, we need to take into consideration that we do have an extraordinary item for the COVID relief funds, 393 in the year that was just audited, and we should be receiving another 393 some odd $1,000 any day. So that puts us in a very good position moving forward to use COVID funds for some of these things the COVID funding is allowed to be spent over the next 5 years. So some of the things that will be coming up as we discuss some of these things, we'll be talking about over probably the next 5 years to determine how we wish to spend that money. Any questions? Moving
I've got,
forward?
would you
Sure.
quickly run us
Yeah,
through these 2
so,
pages?
Thank you, Jeffrey, for providing these slides to us tonight. For the general fund, it's nice to see that the revenue for the general fund is going to be about $5.6 million. Of that, 73% of the total is taxes. Transient occupancy tax or lodging tax is about 20%. And as you can see, moving down, sales tax 29, property tax 13, cannabis tax about 3%, and all other taxes at about 8%. Then moving into expenses for the general fund, which is basically a service fund. Remember, we're providing fire and police and administrative and public works work on streets and roads and those sorts of things. So the personnel salaries is at about 66%. All other things, supplies, contracts, legal costs, some of those things, insurance, winds up at about 34%. So that's basically how things are broken down. Then looking into enterprise funds, which have their own revenue and expenses, basically like you would operate a business, water operations, water improvement, drainage, solid waste collection, solid waste improvement fund, wastewater operations, wastewater improvement funds, community development block grants, which is a grant fund for providing a lot of different things, services, loans for businesses, those sorts of things. Other miscellaneous funds would include things like gas tax and some of those sorts of things. So,
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
Anybody else have questions for Muriel before we go over to public comment? Yes.
The ambiguity from last meeting, carrying over from last meeting about the bumps in salaries for the department heads, are all of those reflected in this budget, or do we need to revisit that on a separate item?
We do not need to revisit that. They are reflected in the authorized position spreadsheet, which is included in your packet. One thing to note on that, however, I did make an error on the number of police officers. There should, instead of 5, there should be 6. And I want to make sure that gets updated correctly. The cost for those employees are included in the budget. It's just that the number of authorized positions is incorrect. And I want to make sure that gets corrected. Everything else is the same. This will be coming back to you for the firefighter and fire captain positions. There'll be some small changes there that'll be coming to you in a closed session at the next meeting. But for now, this is where we are.
So it's everything in column A on that spreadsheet, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Muriel, some questions. Training and professional development expenses are designated where? I didn't find those broken out.
In each department, there'll be employee-related cost just below salaries and benefits. So employee-related cost would be the training and travel and those sorts of conferences, those sorts of things, which have, incidentally has, because of the number of particularly new police officers, the training budget for those folks are a little higher this year because they're getting lots and lots of training, which is great for the department.
Okay, thank you. And And I did not notice DEAC in terms of a fund, and that's probably,
DEAC is in the second set of City of Mount Shasta proposed operating budget 22-23. It is on the,
is it? I just didn't find it.
yeah, it's, believe it or not, it's there. Business Improvement District funds. Their balance is, they have $64,000 moving forward. They generally collect about $9,500 in parking fees, and I have budgeted at $10,000 for expenses. Kind of a carryover from prior years because they had some things in the hopper that they haven't actually gotten to, so I did carry that over. It's not something I usually do, but in this case, I did. So they can continue on with the projects that they want to move forward with.
Very good. And then we've got a community enhancement fund and an economic enhancement fund. And perhaps you can explain the difference in those two and how they are used.
Yeah. The Economic Enhancement Fund is a fund that was created some time ago to recognize that the CDBG program that we were receiving loans from, if the loans collected during the year are under $35,000, and they generally are for us, we don't have very many outstanding CDBG loans. Anyway, if it's under $35,000, that money is then considered defederalized and moved into the Economic Enhancement Fund, in which case the Economic Enhancement Fund can help other funds like the Beautification Fund, for instance, or basically any other type of economic enhancement that would like to be done. At this point, it looks like moving forward, we're going to have about $70,000 moving forward and the addition of another $15,000 to end next year at $85,759 projected for the end of next year. So there may be things that come up or council has ideas about moving forward that if there's an economic enhancement project or something going forward, that would be the pot of money that we would use it for. The Community Enhancement Fund is basically the leftover from the DARE fund, whereby the police department used to do it was an auto show kind of thing. I can't remember when it was, in September, I believe. And when that happened, that's where the money and expenses for that program was taken care of. At this point, we're using it for, if we have contributions, for instance, for, like you talked about, the K-9 program, or which there were some rather large donations in years past, and there are still funds available for that K-9 fund, which is where that $400 and some odd would be expended from out of this fund. And we recognize the contributions for K-9, or the Explorer program has also been recognized there. So it's a community enhancement related to public safety, long story short.
Thank you. That answers all my questions.
I have one, well, that's a comment, so that'll be after public input. Would anybody in the audience like to speak on this issue? Please come up and give us your name.
My name's Tara Shuttleworth. I've been living in Siskiyou County for a year, but I just recently moved to Mount Shasta. I've been attending a lot of city council meetings all over Siskiyou County, but this is my first one here. So my question for you is, when it comes to the COVID money, you're trying to figure out ways to allocate that money. Could part of that money be used for community morale? And by that I mean community events that bring us together. That's one. And then when it comes to the Economic Enhancement Fund and the Community Enhancement Fund, could those also be used, beautification projects? I've got an event I'd like to propose to City Council that maybe I could see about getting some funding from that in addition to Community Enhancement Fund. It kind of seems like these are funds that if an event was proposed that would beautify the city in addition to enhance community engagement, that maybe the city would be interested in helping to fund events like this.
Well, thank you. This isn't a Q&A format, but I would suggest Todd, our city manager, it would be your next step.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? That would be you. Okay. Nobody online? Bring it back to council and see if anybody has any comments. And I'd like to lead this one off, which is because we just put 2 people on the library committee. The library budget top line was interesting, $376,000 coming in. The operating expenses were a little more than the previous years, not when they were operating partially, but back in 2019 and 18, 236, I think, $38,000. But it left about $139,000 open money because they've also got a bank of close to $1 million now. Such that, moving forward, starting to frame out what that debt service possibility would be, and 100 and roughly 40, and I think it would be easy to make that number $40,000 greater. It's just bodes well, in my opinion, for the library, and I was just really happy to read those numbers. Anybody else have some comments or questions?
This is just a speculative statement. I actually think that the revenue numbers are conservative, as usual.
Yeah.
Which is good for budgeting reasons. I think it'll be substantially higher, barring any radical disease issues like we suffered before, and fire problems. So yeah, I think they'll be surprisingly high, factoring in inflation too. So yeah, my past $6 million, just a feeling. All the hotels are full, for instance, are sold out like every day now. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, great. Anyone else? Tim?
So in the spirit of Congress, is this where we vote ourselves a pay raise now? Just kidding, next door neighbor. Just kidding.
$8 a year. Do I hear a motion? With police number changes.
I'll make a motion to approve fiscal year 22-23 budget, authorized positions with the exception that Muriel spoke about with the police and appropriations limits
Second.
by title only.
Second.
And in terms of the appropriation of positions, that would be as amended?
As amended, yes.
Right. Second? John, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Kathy, did we cover approval of that resolution?
Yeah, that falls under the appropriation.
That falls under the appropriations? Okay, thanks. There weren't any outside meetings. Let's go into future agenda items and meetings. Anybody have anything they want to add to the future agenda items? Going once.
I would like to the chair.
But he's still moving, though.
No,
No, you're good, okay.
yeah,
I just want,
everything's happening the way I want it to.
okay, good.
It's okay, we don't have that money for the housing element, that's set me back.
We'll work that out.
As to not lose momentum from our previous workshop, I would like to, at some point, maybe later this summer, revisit our goals and make sure that we're moving in the right direction.
When you want to weave it in, do you want to have like another agenda item?
Or schedule another workshop.
Another workshop,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, perhaps you can include in that, receive in writing what the agreed upon goals were previously, because I don't know that we've actually received that.
If we haven't, I have documentation that I can,
So that could be part of
Provide
the.
the staff,
Could
yeah.
that be part of?
Sure.
I'm supportive. I did, I thought that was very good, thank you. I just thought, get the.
Anybody else?
No.
Well, on that magic note, this meeting is adjourned. That was for John.
Me too.
The big bang? That was for John?
Okay. He said, you got the gavel, use it.
I know.